Hi, I'm David Roberts, a longtime ASES board member. I have had the good fortune to visit the ASES conference in Boulder, Colorado this last August, and I would like to talk about some of the exciting things that I saw and observed on the solar site tour that I was able to take on the conference. So I'm going to talk about the Jack's Solar Garden, the Rocky Mountain Institute's high performance offices, the John Vertison home, which was a 1981 passive solar home, and also just some highlights from the conference for some of you who may not have ever had an opportunity to see the conference. Jack's Solar Garden, is a started out, it's been a long-time family farm that primarily used for hay or irrigated hay. They're in Longmont, which is adjacent to Boulder. And they installed a solar farm, and along the way they've sort of turned it into an experiment. Several universities have joined the party. The initial thing was to start out with the solar farm and the hay, and they evaluated the performance of the solar farm on the hay. And they looked at several ways, and you can see the back side of the panels and the front side. It's a 1.4 megawatt solar array, and they can adjust the tilt on the panels to allow for the farming equipment to get up and down the rows when they need to actually put the farming equipment in there. But recently they've added some research on growing vegetables, and they are evaluating the effects of the panels on the agricultural production. Since this is close to Boulder and Longmont, a lot of the smaller farms, they do growing of things for the metropolitan area there, and so they're looking at various growing various vegetable crops. You can see cucumbers on the right. They got tomato plants, and they've got all kinds of other plants that they are growing. Some of it is irrigated, some of it's not, and they're evaluating the effects of the solar panels on the food production, and trying to figure out how best to do it. So they evaluating the growth of the crops under the panels, and as you'll see from a later slide, they'll talk about the vegetables that grow underneath the panels, the edge of the panels, and what's in the middle, and what's on the non-drip side versus the drip side. So they're just looking at all kinds of aspects of this. Of course, you've got the solar panels. As I said, it was a 1.4 megavolt array, which is a fairly large bolt on this 24 acres. The power goes to through a load sharing agreement with the municipality to supply power to the community. It's a 1.4 million volt PV array that supplies the power. They have a large number of rows and panels. The panels can be adjusted seasonally with their tilt, and they provide the electricity there as they go along. This is a view of the farm from the road, so it's not too obtrusive, no more than any other use, and it's not even as high as a lot of the adjacent buildings. Some of as I said, this is research, so they're doing various things where they are looking at the moisture. Part of the barrier over the plants is to evaluate the irrigation that they have and the moisture and humidity that are coming off of that, and the universities are helping to guide that research. Here you can see an area where they do have the drip irrigation in there, and that's one of the things to see what effect the panels have on the water on the plants, as well as the sunshine. This is our part of our solar group. Is just a collection of people from across the country that are attending the conference and decided to come out on the tour. If you see on the solar panels, these are inverter style panels that convert the power to AC at the panel, and then they combine the flows in the areas. In addition to the solar panels, to the crops, the haying or the vegetables, some people on their solar farms put animals out there. This is an example from another farm that we drove by that has goats. Now you can put larger animals such as cattle or out there, but there is a certain amount of coordination that has to go on. And as I said, this is research, so they've got the zones, that the researchers have evaluated to look at the particular zones and see what their productivity is, and they try to keep detailed records of that to see what impact the panels have and to adjust their strategies on making everything work. The ag solar is great for utility scale and community scale solar farms. You do have to coordinate the panels and their mounting and the wiring with the type of agriculture. The haying versus vegetable crops versus animals, you have to adjust that. If you have animals, you have to match the panel height to the height and size of the animals so that the array can withstand the effect of the animals on that, and you typically would have the panel higher than the height of the animals that you're putting out there. Panels that are on single axis trackers can be positioned so that you can just, what little times you have the equipment out into the fields, you can just turn the panels up so that they're out of the way of the farm equipment, and then they're able to go up and down the farm equipment, to the rows, and be able to operate and accomplish the harvesting as needed. And of course, this size of solar farm is good for a community scale solar, where a number of people might subscribe to that particular farm to get a share of their electricity from that. And it matches up nicely with a very incremental size of the project to do it, and this can help provide access individually to residences' bills who are unable to access solar on their own places. Here's an aerial view of the solar farm thanks to Google, and you can just see the different ground cover and different areas that have been cordoned off for some of the researches and that have been going on. There's 2 or 3 universities that are participating in that, and typically they'll come in for 2 or 3 years for a study, probably associated with a graduate student or two who will help do the research for their particular area, and then they might have a different thing that they study in a 2 or 3 year time frame for the next project in area. And the Jack Solar Farm is purposefully availing themselves not only to just the community solar, but also to doing this research and answering some bigger questions that can help make everybody's solar farm more efficient. The second area that we'd like to talk about is the Boulders Common. The Rocky Mountain Institute is a renowned research firm that has been pioneering the use of alternative energy for decades. They have their main offices are up in the Rockies, but they also have office buildings in some of the metropolitan areas, and including Boulder. Here they have 2 buildings, and they built and then they operate part of the space for their own use, and then they lease the other parts. And they've tried to have a net zero for a commercial office building. And you can see the wall size, the wall mounted solar panels. And this is one of the other buildings, and they use some of the panels for shading over the windows. Many people put awnings up for controlling solar access in and of itself, but here the solar access, the awnings have solar panels on them, so they make electricity as well as providing the shade. And you can see some of the electrical components that go with the building. And inside the building, they've explored healthy features. This is an example of a moss wall, which is trying to bring nature inside. And it's a different kind of wall finish. Obviously, this is not a hands-on kind of thing because moss is a little bit fragile. But it allows the plants to help nourish the air, to help purify it, and to bring a sense of nature to the inside. The two buildings have 100,000 square feet of office space, and they've tried to create a owner-tenant lease that helps both with a win-win on the net zero energy design. As I mentioned, the biophilic design, which is inviting the outside in, includes daylighting of the offices, and also they've tried to use natural materials for the wall paneling. Much of the wall paneling has come from the pine trees that have been killed by the pine bark needle, and they've harvested those trees and prepared the paneling for the office building from that. You can see here the daylighting that comes in to help spread the light to the back of the office, so they have less artificial light that they need to provide for the things. That again lowers your costs, and the natural light is more beneficial for people's eyes. Some additional views of the building. It's adjacent to a rail line that goes up and down the front range. Although there is no train station nearby, there is one not that far away, and it'd be easy bicycle ride to and from these office buildings to the train station. An aerial view of the two buildings, and there's other buildings that are part of other projects that have lots of photovoltaics. So photovoltaics on buildings in Boulder is a very common situation. The third one is the Avison home in Westminster, Colorado. It was a 1981 passive solar house done by the research firm institute that was called SERI, S-E-R-I. It's now sort of transitioned into what we call NREL, which is the National Research Energy Lab. Here you can see the south face that includes 2 floors plus the clerestory windows that allow a light to get to the back to the north end of the house. The deck helps screen the bottom floor with shading. And then there's a fairly good overhang on the upper on the second floor to provide shading, and they also have some energy films to help control light. They've added 14 kilovolts of PV panels. That was not part of the original 1981 house, and that includes battery backup. And you can see here they've opened the panels that sort of hide all this. They're on the outside, but it includes the disconnects and the energy meters and the various things that come with running the storage and the PV panels and the battery backup. A little closer view of the south side of the thing. Um, Here's the doors closed on the battery backup and the controls for the PV. On the other side, to upgrade or to help bring in the new, and to the owner is an experimenter as well, and he's very hands-on with exploring a number of energy components. He's added a relatively new feature, which is a heat pump mini split. This is very good for zoning additions or dividing a house up into portions of that. On the left is the outside unit that helps do the cooling and runs the energy in and out. And then on the right, you can see up on the wall is the interior unit, where the fluid from the coils transfers either heat or cool, depending on the season, to help condition your space. The owners has set up a very elaborate home monitoring system with a lot more features than most typical people would put on their system, but some sort of monitoring to allow the owner to help manage his house is always recommended to do that. And on the left, you can see the clerestory windows that helps let daylight get into to the north side of the house without it needing artificial light. And you can also have some of your heat sinks back in that area as well to help store heat in the wintertime. And of course, Denver and Boulder area do get quite a bit of heating load in the winter, and that comes in very handy for conditioning the space. Another feature that you don't see often on homes is a solar thermal wall. And here, the deck screens this panel from the summertime heat gain, so it doesn't contribute in the summer, but in the winter, the sun is low enough below the deck that it shines on the panel, and then they force air over these panels, and it transfers heat from these black panels into the interior of the house, or you can direct this heat into rock storage, and they have some of both in this house. And the controls on the system, you can decide when and how you need to run that. It can be as hands-on as the owner wants, or it can be automated. This house had several rock storage for thermal storage of heat, so they direct some of that heat into these rock bins where they can use it overnight to help keep the conditioned space of the house comfortable. The one on the right, the rocks, they have 2-inch, I call river rocks, that are located underneath the floor. They would direct the hot air from those wall panels over the space through fans and blowers, and the PV would help provide electricity for running that. And then the rocks store the heat, and then they have a separate fan system that in the nighttime, or especially early morning, would direct the airflow over those rocks to put heat into the living space. On the left, you can see there's two separate pictures. One is a close-up of the box, and the other is a more distant view of a vertical rock box that is mounted not underneath the floor but on the wall. And again, you direct the heat from the solar thermal panels through the rocks that stores the heat. And then you have a separate fan and system that runs the air over the rock when you need supplemental heat, say when the sun's not shining. As with any house that you want to use renewables on, you start with a very well insulated house with plenty of insulation and plenty of air tightness. This particular house, they've had come back in and remodeled the siding. As I said, it was a 1981 house, and typically you would be replacing or upgrading your siding at this point, since we're pretty much 40 years on since the house was initially built. They now have R55 on the walls, which is a very well insulated house. Again, more of the control panels. They have a computer that interfaces that help the owner decide how to run the system. And of course, as this is a very hands-on home, the owner very much likes to tinker with how everything is work and blending it all together for good, comfortable performance and living. On the left, you can see the front elevation. It's on a cul-de-sac, so it's got a sort of a narrow street face. And on the left, you can see the guest EV charger. And on the upper right, you can see the west elevation of the house. And in addition to the windows and doors that they have there, they also have sunscreens over them to help keep down the sun gain from the west sun. And then, of course, again, the rear south face is where all the passive solar comes in. They have interior as well as exterior EV charging, but they didn't show us the interior garage EV charging, but they have enough solar in addition to providing the electrical needs of the house to help charge up their EVs, and their friends who have EVs who come over and visit them can just plug in and get an extra charge to make sure that they're able to get home or get to the next errands and things that they go and do. The fourth part, I would just like to talk about the Solar Energy Society conference, in case any of you haven't ever had the opportunity to go to one. They have a number of general sessions that go on, and especially since COVID's come up, they include both in-person and virtual. They had a few years where, like if we were across the country, everything was virtual, but now they're back to in-person events. But they have it so that speakers and or attendees can attend virtually. And in this case, the speakers are behind some of the panelists that are there in person, and they just bring in the people appropriate time for them to speak and make their presentation. You have a number of people attending the conference, and you can see in the upper left, you can see the video and cameras that help support the conference. On the upper right, you can see our illustrious president, Ken, who was also in attendance at the conference. The lower right, you see a snapshot of the chapter caucus. That's one of the events that happens the day before, where we get a chance to talk with other state chapters across the country and share what's going on and what our issues and problems and opportunities are, and have discussion, and then also how ASES can help and support our chapter efforts. And on the left is just some of the other chapter volunteers who were in attendance, who have been there a number of times, and I've gotten to know, and you can just, a little bit of a comradeship forms with the people that you see. One day is always scheduled for a local energy fair. They have the electric vehicle charging. You can see the solar cookers. And then they have various business, and the local state chapter comes in with their demos and presentations. So some of it's education. Some of it is promotion of individual products that people can consider putting on their homes, and they have a chance to talk and ask questions from the booth demonstrator, so that they can learn more about it in a little bit less intimidating session of an individual home thing. And the sessions have a number of topics. They have a yearly theme that they focus on, but in addition to that, you just get the latest stuff that's happening. Now there's a lot of discussion that since net zero energy homes and structures are very achievable for those who select to do that, it's what do we do next on going and addressing society's needs. And then we got people exploring the best options for what to do on that. And then you have just different topics on, solar thermal, photovoltaics, passive solar, financing of solar systems, the energy grid, and how best to put everything together, and the combinations of things that it takes. So you get researchers or people who are busy doing it in different parts of the country, and they share their experience, and you get a chance to ask questions and learn. And if you decide that you want to do something along their lines, you can have the benefit of their experience to help you in your efforts. Thank you for listening tonight of what about the 2023 ASES conference. Their coming conference is going to be May in Washington, D.C. This was a rescheduled conference that was scheduled during, I think, 2019 that got postponed when we had to go all virtual due to the COVID pandemic. But opportunity for people to hear what's going on in the Mid-Atlantic region and of Virginia, Maryland, and adjacent areas, and to interact with the legislature and to learn again the latest thing. ASES tends to have every other year the conference is in the Denver Boulder area, and then the non-year it's been in Minneapolis, it's been in New Mexico, now it's going to Washington D.C. It moves around the country depending on the opportunities that are available. If you have a chance to attend either virtually or attend in person, I would recommend that, and it's a great way to learn the latest of what's happening with the solar and renewables. Thank you.